All right, cool. Let's get this show on the road. What's up, ego hackers and lockmaxers, all of our peeps? This is Hacked Off Podcast, episode 14. And I'm your host, C.S. Joseph, joined, as usual, by the big kahuna himself, one of the greatest kahunas we've ever had within the community. Also decided to assist us today with preventing somebody who should not be in a group of people and messing that up. It's like, yeah, hi, I'm sorry. If you want to actually join the women's group within the community, you actually have to be a woman. So, but yeah, we're putting a stop to that. Anyway, Yuri Skarzynski.
And we know how to define what a woman is.
Yeah,
We're not confused by that.
Yes. Were you saying the role change?
Yeah, we have the roles on Discord. We have male, female.
Yes.
I'm just going to change it, XX and XY.
Yeah, bro, do it. Like, and
apparently
include like the little symbol with it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of unambiguous. But yeah, let's fucking go. Like, come on. Like, no, we're not down for that. We're not down for the whole, like, you know, masturbating each other with our bodies because it's not real sex. Like, ugh. It's just, yeah, we're not doing that shit. Anyway, if you want to get in on the craziness that is the Ego Hackers Discord server, discord.gg/Ego Hackers. That is where the community is. Hacked Off Podcast is an offshoot of the C.S. Joseph YouTube channel. Still part of the Ego Hacker community, and then the sub-community within the Ego Hacker community are definitely the lockmaxers. And if you're a man, if you have a penis and you're not lockmaxing, what the fuck are you doing? Even when you're 80 years old, you should be lockmaxing. I know I'll be. So just understand that. Also, if you want to talk to Yuri and I directly, Linktree. The Linktree links are in the description below. Just click them, get on all of our socials, have conversations with us, do that. Also, watch us roast the fuck out of people that we don't like on X repeatedly, and hopefully we can have them on the show and call them out on their degenerate bullshit, like Andrew Wilson, which I sincerely hope we have the opportunity to do. The Wilsons, no thank you. And then obviously we are sponsored by the C.S. Joseph YouTube channel, and to take advantage of that sponsorship, school.com/CS Joseph, SKOOL. Become a member, learn very quickly if you are unconscious developed or if you're subconscious developed as a man or a woman, and then you know how to properly live your life. And also, we're going to have a hacked off school community just for the lockmaxers, where we're going to be having specific content for you, like cold approach pickup for unconscious developed men, how to become UD and stay UD. That's another one. How to live out of your car, how to join the military to get your rite of passage. We have tons of courses that we have planned for the upcoming school. You folks are really going to want to be a part of it. I'd also encourage women to join so that you can actually see exactly how and why men should be acting the way they should be acting, instead of like this bullshit societal crap that you're fed in public school or at church. And so you're not like caught up in that bullshit as a woman. And then you're not set up for failure in your life, because it's not like your father's ever gonna fucking teach you. It's not like your mother's gonna fucking teach you either. So like, to get away from that shit, definitely become a member of the new Hacked Off School. It is around the corner, which is awesome. And then, yeah. So what do you got for comments?
Okay. We got Drug DJE 914. Man, I miss the time when you used to do psychology.
But this show is about psychology. We're talking about subconscious development and unconscious development.
Yeah, it's a little bit, it's not as intensive as the C.S. Joseph channel, but that's why we made an entirely separate channel.
Yeah, to talk about gender dynamics and psychology. That's what Hacked Off is all about. Like, why is he whining about that? You should go whine about that over at the C.S. Joseph YouTube channel. And even then, what they don't know is I'm about to drop a bunch of episodes where I'm in front of a whiteboard basically explaining Octagram 4, Type Grid 5, and Type Grid 6 to a point. Not going to get rid of the, I'm not going to get into like what we present in the courses in the C.S. Joseph School, but I'm going to be like touching it very lightly so people can like see like their type and mix and match. And it's 120 videos. And it'd take me a fucking year to get through that season. But basically it's season 3, part 2. Everyone's favorite season on my YouTube channel is season 3, but we're doing season 3, part 2, basically on the YouTube channel, and it's me with the whiteboard yelling at people again and trying to make the camera melt through sheer anger and rage, but as well as some nice light education. But that I didn't stop doing psychology.
There's school too. Like,
yeah.
What are the odds they're not a school subscriber and they're missing out on season 40, 41,
That's a
and
good point.
42
Yeah,
right
I didn't
now,
think about that.
as we speak.
Yeah,
Like, they
you're
could be on
right.
that
Yeah, you're
immediately
right.
for $29.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And then they're commenting this on entirely the wrong channel.
Yeah, exactly.
On top of that. So, like, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, shut your mouth.
Especially in this comment section of the Hacked Off channel.
Yeah, like shut your mouth.
Like, one, make that comment on your other channel, and then two, don't even make that comment there. Just go on school.
If this person made this comment, like on the Discord server, the Discord would be like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like what? Like what?
Yeah, and I don't want to hear that $29 is too expensive. Like, people spend that every day on, like, complete goy-slop at the drive-thru.
Yeah, they
like,
do.
$29, and anyone can come up with that, even if you're in, like, a second, third world country.
And we're given, like, insanely good life advice. Like, if you're going to become UD as a man, don't marry an SD woman, because then you're going to be, like, incompatible later.
Yeah, but you shouldn't charge money. You should work for free.
Yeah, apparently.
Do everything for free on this person's time frame, not yours, because they want it now.
We have to be entitled.
If you want it now, get on school. Otherwise, you have to wait until it's on the YouTube.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we don't want to hear how impatient you are when you're not even a school subscriber. So get over it.
You know what's really interesting about that? That kind of ties into the show a little bit today, because we are going to be talking about proper male entitlement today. Proper male entitlement. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Anyway, what do you got? What's next?
You got Scarecrow 1410.
I love Scarecrow 1410. He's always commenting.
Yeah, he goes, I got a magnet placed on my fridge that says lock in. I still don't fully understand how being emotionally explosive is masculine, though.
Okay. It's because women know where you stand, okay? Like, for example, one of the things that has scared my UDPF wife about, like, her relationship with her father is that he was so implosive and he never talked about literally anything, and she never knew where he stood, such that she never knew if she was doing something right. So it's hard to get, like, compliments as a child to get encouraged. So she would constantly feel discouraged, and she would never know if she was doing something wrong, which then would open her up to making consistent mistakes. This is why it is very critical for men to be open, especially for the sake of women. And I could also make the same argument for their boys, men as well. Definitely need to know where your father stands. And if you don't, you're basically going to be aimless in life. This is why it is critical to be emotionally open as a man. It is absolutely critical. So yeah.
All right, that's it.
That's it? That's it for comments.
Yep,
all right.
those two.
All right, so story time. So earlier today, we got to see a content creator with his whole setup doing a Steven Crowder thing. He had his table set up, and it says, Christians can't eat pork, change my mind, type of a thing. And he had this whole video set up, and it was amazing. And I got into a debate with the guy. I went up to him and I asked him the fun trick question, which is it lawful for, and I'm kind of echoing Matthew 19 and Mark 10 when I say this, is it lawful for a woman to divorce a man for any reason? And immediately he said no. But then when I started asking him more, like, clarifying questions about it, he started to, like, go in more deeper, and then he's like, well, in the case of adultery, then it's okay for a woman to divorce. And I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. That's actually entirely false. Because if you actually read Matthew 19 and Mark 10, nowhere does it say that a woman is permitted to divorce. It doesn't say that. Only men are permitted to divorce if the woman commits sexual immorality. But he started to claim that if a man commits sexual immorality, then the woman, it's okay to divorce as well. Well, this is completely false. It's bullshit.
What was
the Bible is silent on it.
Wasn't it like a man having sex with a married woman, and then his wife, not the married woman, not the one he's having sex with,
yeah, exactly, he's
having grounds to divorce him?
Yeah,
it's like, no, well, the other guy,
that's not even
whose
biblically
wife
supported,
is committing adultery with this guy.
Yeah,
that's a different story.
Yeah,
but not this guy and his wife.
Yeah,
like, grounds for divorce and then sin are two different things. Right?
Exactly, they're completely. And I did say that. I did say that. Sin. He's breaking multiple commandments. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not covet. Thou shalt not commit adultery. But nowhere in the Bible does it say that a woman has grounds to divorce. And this is something like a lot of people miss. And he started to make this argument where there's this doctrine called gender inclusion. I don't know if that's the correct title for it. But this doctrine is that the church believes that, when the Bible's saying sons of Israel or mankind or whatever, that includes women too. But that's not the context of what Jesus was actually saying in Matthew 19 and Mark 10. And so he's trying to do this gender inclusion bullshit. And the reason why he's trying to do gender inclusion is because that way then he can argue against polygyny. because gender inclusion would have to be true in order for him to argue against polygyny. But he can't argue against polygyny because of 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 16, which talks about how Paul's calling out people, oh, you unite yourself with a prostitute, don't you know you're becoming one flesh? And the fact that Paul is even making that argument, and he himself, this evangelist, this content creator, was actually like being supportive of Paul and claiming that Paul's writings are the word of God in the Bible, because if he's making that claim, then he has to agree with 1 Corinthians 6:16, which completely invalidates the one flesh argument anyway, because how can you be one flesh with multiple people? Well, basically, Paul is saying that you can in 1 Corinthians 6:16. So his argument is entirely invalid by his own position. And I ran out of time. I wish I could have gone in deeper with him. We've probably been in there for like another 30 minutes if I just really went in deeper. And the gender inclusion thing is not true, because when you read the Bible, you should really read it from the perspective of, okay, what is the actual context? You know, sometimes there's gender inclusion, and a lot of times there isn't. And the Bible is silent on whether or not a woman can initiate divorce. And frankly, it's because they can't. They can't initiate divorce. Nowhere in the Torah do you even see that at all. And so he's doing this thing called harmonization. And in my opinion, it leads people astray, and it's wrong. I really think it's wrong. And I don't think he should be able to have that position whatsoever. So it's nice to be able to bring this up on the show, because it's like we've been talking a lot about these biblical concepts. And today's biblical concept comes from Ecclesiastes chapter 7, which is, in my opinion, my second most favorite verses in the Bible. My favorite ones being Malachi chapter 4, but Ecclesiastes chapter 7, which we'll get into, is my second favorite, because it has to do with what we're talking about in the show today, which is Apex of Hypergamy. Is it for you? You know, as a man, you have to understand psychologically how women work. And you know what's interesting about the concept of the Apex of Hypergamy? No one else is talking about this.
Yeah, I've never heard anyone else use that term.
Yeah, you never heard it. Yeah, you never heard it. Okay, yeah.
I mean, everyone's heard of hypergamy.
Yeah,
Apex of hypergamy.
yeah. No one fucking gets it. You know, and here's the thing, like hypergamy, or at least what I would call open hypergamy, where hypergamy is socially acceptable now, and this is what Rollo Tomasi utilizes as his argument for men should be allowed to spin plates because open hypergamy is okay.
Yeah, because the feminine primary social order.
Yeah, or it's gynocentrism.
Yeah.
But I'm arguing that open hypergamy exists because men are plate spinning. I think it's more like he's reversed the cause and effect with his fucking red pill grift again.
As always.
Mm-hmm. I fucking hate that. But here's the thing. When you're looking at the victims of open hypergamy, you know, not that we're like going on our way to criticize women here, because we've already established that women oftentimes have no choice but to act this way just for the sake of their own survival. Yes, it is still morally wrong, and we're not supportive of open hypergamy whatsoever. But we also understand that women, based on how bad things are in society with subconscious developed social order being the norm, they oftentimes feel like they have no choice, especially if they don't have a biblical background. What are they going to fucking do? Well, they're going to sin, and they're going to do this. And they're going to feel like they have no choice. So then you get to a position where you're like, okay, this is kind of understandable. Well, the victims are basically subconscious developed men, as well as UDUF men. They're consistently victims of monkey branching, development phase, and open hypergamy. But before we can go further, let's define sexual strategies one more time for everybody. One more time, and this is the last time on the show that I'm going to define sexual strategies, and I'm just going to refer to, like, you're going to have to watch a previous episode you should know your terminology. Like, fucking read a book. Like, I would still encourage men to read the Rational Male books, because he does a great job of identifying the problem, except that problem is an effect of another problem, which our book, we're going to be identifying the actual problem.
Women should read it too, so they can know what
Yeah.
is actually lurking beneath these subconscious developed plate spinners in their entire mindset.
You know what, that reminds me. I actually had this ex-girlfriend of mine, and I red pilled her. I gave her the Rational Male books. I also gave her Emerson Eggert's book, Love and Respect, which I recommend you read whenever you get a chance. Not anytime soon, maybe in a year. You have that book?
I've read that. Yeah.
You've read that book?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I like that book because it takes away like excuses when it comes to women deciding not to submit to men. I love that for that point, because like male idealism is so like ingrained in us, especially from the feminine primary social order that teaches us to be like, you know, beta bucks, for example. men are just basically by default in general loving towards women anyway. That's why women have even less excuse to not follow that love and respect model. But I gave her, I broke up with her, gave her the love respect thing. I went away on a trip for a weekend and I found her like capped out at like my fucking door and like tons of notes and sticky notes attached to the book. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. Will you take me back? I'm like, okay, fine. And I did. And then later I had to break up with her later due to like, violence, but towards me from her. But that's a different story entirely. But the thing is though, is that she read the Red Pill books too. She also read The Game by Neil Strauss, and she's like, oh my God, I did not know how bad it actually was. And I'm like, yeah, now you know how all these men are treating you. Now you fucking know just how bad it really is. And when like women need that education, fathers need to like actually sit down and explain just how bad things are to them because they have no clue. But of course, the fathers have no fucking clue either because they're all a bunch of subconscious developed dipshits.
Isn't there a required like reading list for the Ladies of Noble Character group? Are any of those books on there?
I don't know.
They should be if they're not.
They should. I've kind of just like, I just let Lady Ashton do whatever she wants with it and try to stay out of it.
Well, she can take that as a suggestion if she wants, but
yeah, she's got her dumpling
choice.
school podcast, which is pretty cool. But anyway, so definition of sexual strategies. So men and women, when they're using their sexual strategy, put every person in the opposite sex in two categories, okay? And the two categories. And I would actually, I would say that it's harder for women to categorize men because I don't think they instantly know versus a man basically instantly knows. This is a woman I marry or this is a woman that I just fuck and I put in the sex only category. Which, by the way, I'm not advocating for sex only category. That is degenerate and you should not act that way. And in my opinion, if you engage in sex only category, also known as fornication, you are committing rape biblically. That is my current position. So just fair warning, don't do that. And that's what spinning plates ultimately is. So men are putting women into these two categories, the women I marry versus the women I just have sex with, essentially. And men know like instantly, within seconds, they'll know typically what category a woman is. Now, if he spends time getting to know her, which you've recommended on the show, it's like, yeah, don't just jump into a relationship. Actually spend time to get to know her ahead of time. And then you can see if she's going to stay in the commitment category or not, or the non-committal category. Because like eventually, she can come off in commitment category, and you find out later that she is no.
Yeah, and then you just let her go. It's like
yeah,
catch and release.
Exactly,
like
catch and
with
release.
A fish,
Yeah,
like,
exactly. And you never had sex with her either, so like it's fine, in terms of proper dating, if we can even call it dating, is basically like I was explaining, one of the coolest strategies in terms of being an unconscious developed man is if you see a woman that you like out in public, just go right up to her. It's a fun opener, but it's like, hey, can I get your dad's phone number? And she'd be like, what? And then you're like, yeah, I want to talk to your father. And she's like, why did you want to talk to my dad? And it's like, oh, because I want to ask him permission to date you. So like, and they're floored. They're floored every time. They're like, what the hell? Or even funnier, you go up to the mother and be like, hey, can I have her father's contact information? And she'll be like, well, what? And you have to say her father because there might be a step simp in there. You know what I mean?
You don't want to you don't want to call Andrew.
Yeah.
And talk to him.
You don't want to talk to Andrew Wilson. Yeah, fuck that. And then the mother is floored. And then like how her hypergamy works is kind of like in support, like, yeah, you should actually consider this guy. And then like she might even henpeck the dad to even allow it, which is also funny.
Speaking of Andrew, you know how cucked he is?
How cucked?
It's even worse than I thought.
Really?
I did a deep dive on Andrew. It gets so much worse than what we talked about last episode.
Okay.
So
shit.
Rachel's oldest daughter, who is not Andrew's biological.
Yeah.
Like that's from her previous baby daddy. I don't know if it was guy number 1 or guy number 2. Probably not number 1. Rachel was trying to use Twitter to set her up with a husband. Oh. And she was the one deciding, not Andrew, who gets with her daughter, because it's not his kid.
Gross.
And he's like a SD cuck, so he's going to let her do it.
Yeah.
He's like deferring the male responsibility of even, being the guy who decides who ends up with his daughter. But it's not his daughter anyway.
Simps don't give a shit about.
So even if it was his daughter, he probably still wouldn't do it and let Rachel do it. She set her daughter up with a Nick Fuentes supporter, like a Groiper.
Yeah.
And they got together, They got engaged, I think. And what ended up happening was he had sex with uh, Rachel's daughter, and then dumped her. Took a bunch of nudes, and then threatened Andrew to release them if he ever goes against Nick Fuentes publicly on his any of his platforms,
Wow.
and is like holding that over his head. That's the
Wow.
guy who Rachel Wilson set her daughter up with, and then
Wow.
bragged that she set her up with such a great man,
Wow.
because he's a groiper.
And set her up to be biblically raped with the great. Wow, that's such bullshit. Like, unbelievable. Now, what hypergamy is women will put men into two categories, which is alpha fucks, beta bucks. Alpha fucks is basically the man's an alpha. He's got alpha fitness, alpha intelligence. He's got alpha drive. He's very driven individual. He's very self-respecting. Doesn't put up with bullshit. Versus the beta bucks is that it's about parenting, parental investment, provisioning, protection, these kinds of things. And women and all men basically fit into those two categories. The thing is, it's the top 4% of men, the UDSF men, basically, who are able to do both simultaneously. And that is what is called satisfying a woman's hypergamy. And that is absolutely necessary in order for a man to be the apex of a woman's hypergamy. That is absolutely critical. And that's what that is all about. And so what we're going to be discussing in today's episode is, when you want to be the apex and when you don't want to be the apex, how you become the apex and how you not become the apex. These are basically the 4 questions that we're going to be answering in today's show. And I think this is absolutely critical for men in general to have to know, because if you're going to, as Benjamin Franklin would say in his little treatise, which is Advice to a Young Man on the Choice of a Mistress, which I highly recommend everyone reads, by the way. And it's actually a letter to his son. At least that's what I was taught in school.
He was a UD ENTP, right?
He was a UDSF ENTP. That's right. And he was banging hoes till he was 80. And then shortly died afterwards due to syphilis because of said banging of hoes. Don't recommend that. None of this fornication bullshit. Anyway, so as a result of that, apex of hypergamy. Basically, when a man is apex of hypergamy, that is the best a woman has ever had. There's actually a song about this by one of my favorite recording artists named Limi, which is Limi. And she has a song called The Best I've Ever Had. And it literally is the song. It is the anthem for the apex of hypergamy. So dudes, listen to that shit. Girls, listen to that shit. Figure it out. Okay? So yeah. The problem is that, obviously if you're in a relationship with a woman, if you're in a committed relationship with a woman, you need to be the apex of her hypergamy. But are the SD men the apex of hypergamy? The answer is no. And the reason why is because, they're harmony maxing, and they're also they're pussy maxing. They're putting women on a pedestal consistently, because these men, they think they have alpha traits when they're doing the machismo thing, but women have this thing where they just see through all of that bullshit. A woman can immediately tell when a man is faking. They just can. They really can, especially if they're SDJ. Maybe not so much for UDP women, but they definitely figure it out. And because hiding things from women just doesn't really go very far. And the subconscious development make that their bread and butter, because as Tom Likas would say, he's just teaching lying.
Well, the SD men, they already specialize in the beta traits. But what the red pill teaches them is to get rid of that.
Yes.
They already have that. So now they don't have either of the qualifications because they're
Correct.
chasing the other one, which
Correct.
they don't actually have.
Yeah.
So all the red pill is really for you as a man is disarming you of one of the two things you need in exchange for zero of the two things you need.
Yes, it's making you
so
effeminate.
good job. Yeah, good job, Rolo.
Yeah, thank you for making more men effeminate.
You're
and
not
there's
alpha
no
fucks,
masculinity
and
there.
neither are you beta bucks after you read The Rational Male.
Just the old crusty man who pays women to stand next to him, frankly. So it's just why not do that? So obviously you want to be the apex of a woman's hypergamy in a committed relationship, but you need to understand that it's also extremely dangerous, which we're going to be going into. But stop harmony maxing. Remember, guys, harmony is all about trying to fit in, and honestly, there is no fitting in. There is no fitting in for men. Where exactly do you fit in? I mean, women fit in. Even subconscious developed judging women fit in. And sometimes the UDP women, the UDPF women, they're well, we don't always fit in. you know, but they're trying the hardest to fit in. That's why they're the pick-me's. Like, don't get me wrong, I love me pick-me's. I love pick-me women. Pick-me girls are the best. And in my opinion, I would encourage UD men, go for the pick-me's first every single time if you're trying to wife up somebody.
And we will have a course on that.
We will. And
on the Hacked Off School community.
That's right.
Soon to be released.
Yes. But if you're like pussy maxing out there, like pussy maxing, in my opinion, is just like another form of the stink of death. Like literally. It is pussy maxing, because it's like when you're harmony maxing, when you're pussy maxing, you're basically going out of your way to care about what other people think. But if you're authentic as a man, you don't give a shit about, you really don't give a shit about fitting in. You don't give a shit about what other people think. I just don't give a shit. Because as iron sharpens iron, so does one man to another. That is a biblical teaching. So like we have a friend group, right? And if someone's like trying to fit in or be harmonious, I'm just going to call them out on it. It's just like, no, just be your authentic self. This is like where be yourself actually matters. The problem is when they twist it. When they're like, you know, like we see like a negative behavior that we don't like in a man in our friend group. And they're like, well, I'm allowing myself to act this way because I'm being my authentic self, when they don't even realize that it's actually a form of self-gaslighting and a form of fakery, even in its own right. So they actually think they're being real, when in reality is that they're not being real. Because the source of it is that they care about what other men around them think about them. And so because of that, they're actually adjusting their behavior and acting that way specifically for the sake of harmony.
Yeah, and if you're using that as an excuse, that's proof that you're SDJ and not UDJ, because they're using that authenticity as a shield to avoid accountability.
Exactly.
And that's how you know you're SD, when you do that exact behavior.
Yeah.
That's how you can tell.
It's fake authenticity. It's not even authentic. It's completely fake. It may feel authentic to them, but it's not. It's absolutely not. And it's just this whole fake it till you make it bullshit that you and I were discussing earlier. And it's just like, no, that does not exist. And so anyway, Apex of Hypergamy, for better or worse, is basically like, it is the position of a man being the best a woman has ever had, okay? And honestly, being the apex of hypergamy is absolutely necessary to keep a family together and ultimately prevent your children from being fatherless, because that will happen, especially in the United States of America, because 83% of divorce is initiated by women anyway, and that divorce rate is like, everyone's like, oh, it's above 50%. No, it's like, it's way higher. It's like, it's above 60%. It might be closer to 70%. Like, that's bullshit. Just be aware of that. And if you also consider like breakups potentially part of the divorce rate, it's even higher than that, especially in a society that is governed by open hypergamy, where women are basically allowed to be cheating hoes everywhere. Because it's like, oh, you know, I'm 20 to 25 years of age. I'm in my hoe years, so I can attract the UD alphas and get with the top 4% of men, or even the top 20% of men, the UD men that they notice. They don't even notice the other 80% of men at all. And then they end up settling for the beta, the subconscious developed man, and then they end up divorcing him in development phase in their mid-30s anyway. This is where we get the book Eat, Pray, Love, which is the anthem of development phase, basically, by Elizabeth Gilbert. So, but the point is that you as a man, it is your responsibility to be the apex of hypergamy. But here's the thing. If you're not shirking your male burden of performance, if you're not shirking it, then you will, by default, be the apex of hypergamy, provided other men have not been inside of her. That's the point. Because again, that song, The Best I've Ever Had, you know, by Leamy, which everyone needs to listen to. That thing is like fucked.
Have you seen this, by the way? This is the stable marriage rate.
The stable marriage rate?
Yeah.
Stable
Based
marriage
on
rate.
Body count.
Oh my God. So number of lifetime non-marital sexual partners in women, 21 plus, has like 20% stable marriage, 80%.
For virgin
virgin women is 80%.
80% of them have stable marriages.
Wow.
Women with body counts over 21, it's 20%. That's
why we recommend virgins only.
That's also the Pareto principle. 80,
it is Pareto.
80-20.
It is 80-20. It's Pareto principle. Wow. You know what? You should post that in the Hacked Off chat.
I posted it in Confessions today.
Oh, okay. Well, shit. That's bitching. Like, the hell.
And you notice the drop off too. It goes from 80% stable to only 50% after one. Body count of one.
Yeah.
And then it only gets worse from there.
Wow.
That's a massive cliff. So anyone that says, "Oh, virginity doesn't matter," well, there's stats backing this up that it
It
does matter.
entirely matters. Yeah, for sure.
So just, if you think it doesn't matter, continue sticking your head in the sand, because the data is not on your side.
Yeah. So you have to be the apex of hypergamy just to even keep your family together. You just have to. And it's much easier to be the apex of hypergamy if she's a fucking virgin. To the point you will be the apex. You're guaranteed to be the apex of the hypergamy. But the more sexual partners that a woman has, psychologically and physically, like, you're not going to be the apex of hypergamy. Because, like, for example, what if her body, when she's building a child in her womb, selects other epigenetic traits from other men that have nutted in her, basically, and then gives that to the child because her body determines that that gene expression is superior to yours, and then the child that comes out doesn't even look like you. Okay? What happens then? You see? This is why this is why we talk about telegony, which everyone says, "Oh, that's false. It's bullshit. The fact-finding websites say it's bullshit." I'm like, no, it's a fucking conspiracy.
Another fun fact: Andrew Wilson insisted that Rachel get a paternity test for his 2 kids with her.
Really?
Yes.
What? Because they didn't look like him. Well, yeah, it's because she's had other men nut inside of her. We know this because she has other children with other men.
Yeah.
Telegony is a fucking thing. If you people are in denial about it, I don't know what else to fucking say to you. Okay? People want to deny it because, and they can deny it because everything they think it's just about the regular genome and genetics, and that's not it. There's an epigenetic genome. You need to study epigenetics. It is a thing. No AI will support this argument. It is an actual conspiracy. You need to actually fucking look it up. Okay? So, but here's the thing, like, you look at SD men, right? And they're very invested in the beta buck side of a woman's hypergamy. Unless they're red pilled, then they don't even have that, which is a problem. And they're SDUF, and just they're being like parasites on women, essentially. And being hypergamous from safety net to safety net, as we've discussed previously. But the thing is that, like, they end up never being the apex. And the reason why is because they have scarcity mindset, they're pussy maxing. They're caring about the vibes. They're trying to vibe with a girl instead of actually being real with the girl. Because if you're trying to vibe with a girl, you're a fake bitch. You're literally a fake bitch. You're a faker. You're not even real. You're inauthentic. Like, how the fuck could that woman ever, like, trust you? How the fuck could that woman actually ever be willfully desirous of submitting to you as a man? That basically means you're a shitbag in women's eyes in general, to the point that other women would pressure your woman to cheat on you because other women collectively are judging you a shitbag because you're fake. Women cannot stand fake men. And this ultimately is the stink of death. If you're acting like this is the stink of death. And women can, like, they can smell the fake coming off of you. Here's the other thing, like, you were talking about, like, men are the disposable sex, right? But, like, they're disposable, but without expectations. This is another problem.
That's called being a simp. Mm-hmm. When you're offering up all of what you have to offer as a man.
Yeah, time, attention, and resources.
Return,
yes.
As you should get something in return.
Yes.
And being somehow happy with that or pretending to be happy with that. That is simp behavior.
Yeah. That's the OnlyFans bullshit.
That's the definition of being a simp, is like giving more than you get back. So
what you're saying is that the stink of death, definitionally speaking, leads to actions that prove that you're actually a fucking simp.
I'd say it's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Stink of death is simping. Because by definition, you're putting the woman on a pedestal
to have
the stink of death in the first place.
Adam in the Bible had the fucking stink of death. And then God punished him by cursing the earth. We didn't have to work the ground. But then because of Adam and his simping, we have to work the ground now.
Yeah, he's like, I made it clear to you.
And we died.
I made this woman out of your rib. She came from you.
Before, we had access to immortality. We're not immortal anymore. Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, don't put your own rib on a pedestal.
Yeah. Bro.
Like, you are better than a rib.
Bro, that is phenomenal. That's so, and for all the rib argument. I love the rib argument because it's like, oh, you're against polygyny. Well, guess what? The spine has multiple ribs. The rib cage has multiple ribs. That means multiple women, bitch. So shut the fuck up.
That's a good point too.
Yeah, like seriously, shut the fuck up about that. And here's something that's really interesting. So you actually brought this up about how UDUF men, because SD men have the fear of rejection. UDSF men have fear of being a creep, right? But here's the thing, though. You brought up that UDUF men have both fear of rejection
Yes.
and fear of being a creep.
Yes.
Like, which means the stink of death is even worse for UDUF men. Oh my God. And I was thinking about that. I was like, you know what? Yuri's right.
Yeah,
Yuri's
I
right
used to
about
think
that.
SDUF is like the worst octogram to be as a man. Now I'm starting to think it's UDUF.
Yeah, UDUF. They're half-baked. That's the problem. They're half-baked. And because they're half-baked, women will automatically, by default, assume fakery. They'll smell that fakery.
But because they're UD, like they're close, but they're so
Yeah.
close yet still so far away.
Still far. Yeah, that's it. And you still see the UDF men exercising scarcity mindset. They're still pussy maxing, and they're still stink of deathing. And they're a lot. And basically, they're still, in my opinion, they're at even higher risk of being the disposable sex without getting anything in return. They're still at higher risk of being what you would call the time
Yes, because
hoe.
they have more idealism than the SD
Yes,
men.
they do.
So they have more to offer
Yes.
while also not getting anything in return. So it's even more of an unequal exchange.
That would explain all of my stupid, simpy behavior in my 20s and how I basically ruined my life as a result. That was me, and I don't recommend that for like literally anyone. You know, what's also interesting is that like they're half baked, but that behavior is the opposite of what the rite of passage, which we discussed in episode 3 of the Hacked Off podcast, is all about. Like, it is the opposite of those epiphanies. Try to be harmonious, pussy maxi, put a woman on a pedestal, just like Adam put Eve on a fucking pedestal, even though she fucked the serpent and then she fucked Adam, basically.
Yeah, I don't even know if they
Like-
realize they're putting the woman on a pedestal. I think what they're doing is just putting themselves below.
Yeah, they're putting themselves below. Yeah.
Like they're not even conscious that they're doing it. Because it's
No,
like,
they're
oh, well,
not.
I'm not putting the woman on a pedestal. It's like you are if you're putting yourself below her.
That is by definition self-deprecating behavior.
Because if she's above you, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if she's up
And these
or you're down. Like the fact is, it's the same thing.
Wouldn't you think that these men have this, what do you call it, like this belief or this ego investment that to be entitled is not masculine? Is that what it is? Like they're trying to avoid coming off entitled. They're trying to be entitled because they know the subconscious developed men are entitled and are solipsistic.
Yes, but there's a nuance there that they're missing.
Okay, yeah, what's that?
Well, there's different kinds of entitlement. There's entitlement that's like deserved and undeserved entitlement.
Exactly. Men can be entitled, and they can be entitled in a healthy way, in as much as a woman can be entitled in a healthy way. And what is a woman healthily entitled to? Oh, that's right, both sides of her are hypergamy. Literally. Every woman is entitled to that because men need to be generalizing and they have to be able to cover both sides of a woman's hypergamy. If they can't, then like they failed as a man. They're not even masculine. They're shitbags basically. But the rite of passage teaches them like that's not how to act like at all. And we see it over and over and over. But here's what's really annoying. When this happens, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Okay, because like, you know, we look at the dating statistics on the dating apps, we see that like a very small percentage of the men are fucking all the girls. Orion Terabon, we talked about him in the last episode. I talk about him a lot. Women are creating a polygamous society. Watch that video on YouTube. That's a very important one. Watch that other guy, which we mentioned his name in the last episode. He talks about it as well in his video. It's never been easier to get a woman, and it is so true. I mean, for example, we were talking to a woman earlier today who was like asking me for like a card off of a guy's table that I grabbed because she wanted to read it, but she was too scared to go over to the table and actually get it herself. And then I said, "Oh, you have beautiful daughters, right?" Because I'm just being my authentic self, and then walking off. And then like, what was the girl's reaction to that?
Oh, she melted like a freaking candle. Like
Yeah,
immediately.
immediately melted because
She's like, beautiful daughters? What?
Yeah.
Like she couldn't believe
Yeah.
that was said to her.
and women like have no.
With no expectation of anything
Yeah.
in return.
Yeah.
You walked off immediately.
Yeah, we walked off
right after
immediately.
saying that.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you're saying that to get a reaction or to
No.
get something from them.
No.
Like it was completely
Just being
no
my
strings
authentic
attached.
self. You have beautiful daughters. which is good for women and mothers to hear, because they're like, oh, someone actually noticed, especially since that woman was SDJ and she's craving attention all the time. She never gets enough attention. It's not like the SD men actually give her enough attention, because they don't, because they spend all their attention on their own selves, basically, especially like king archetype, subconscious developed men, where they're very generative, but they're generative for self, and they will only share what they have generated with those dependent on them, basically, unless it's a covert contract, and it's like, oh, unless they've done something nice for them or something that they want or whatever, and only then will they, meet the needs.
And for the people that say we don't talk about psychology, that's NJ men.
That's NJ men. Yeah.
And you would know that if you're on school. So everyone get on school. School.com/CS Joseph.
It's so depressing. But here's the thing: like, what I've noticed, it's like SD men do complain a little bit about the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, about the top 4% of men fucking all the girls, or the top 4% of being the only ones able to get wives. But I've actually noticed that it's the UDUF men who actually complain about it even more. And they allow themselves to get bitter about it, very bitter, very resentful about it. They allow themselves to be envious, and maybe even in some cases act jealously. To the point where if the UDUF man does get a woman, he's gonna be like hyper possessive and like even mate guarding and get even worse. And UDUF man, I think, is really exemplifying the stink of death more so than subconscious development, because at least at a minimum, the subconscious developed men are generally solipsistic and more selfish and entitled anyway, even though they're entitled about the wrong things, essentially. But the UDUF men is like they've completely gone hyper away from entitlement whatsoever.
Even the right form of entitlement.
Yeah, even the right form of entitlement. They just completely run away from it. And I'm just like, what in the flying fuck are you doing? Like, do you not, like, look, if the Bible cares a lot about relationship and family equity, investment from a man, and has laws around protecting that, then what the fuck are you doing acting like you're not entitled to anything as a man? What in the flying fuck? Like, who the fuck are you? Like, stop doing that. That's bullshit behavior. So, and then they end up blaming the top 4% of men and claim that those men are the actual problem. And they're joining into the harmonious mob mentality of the SD men in the process to go after the UDSF men and claim that the UDSF men are actually the problem. When in reality is, not one of them wants to face the facts that they have the stink of death and they need to take some fucking responsibility for that.
Because they put themselves down first, and then they end up lacking confidence.
They also covert contract that. They expect other men, especially UDSF men, to self-deprecate.
And if you're putting yourself down as a man to the point where you don't even feel entitled to things you should be entitled for, if you're putting yourself down as a man, you're by definition putting the woman up.
Exactly.
By extension.
Yeah, well said. Very well said. That's a good point.
So stop putting yourself down.
I had a UDF man in my face recently, and he's getting all upset about how, like, oh, you never admit to wrong, you never do this. And it's like, oh, so because you're self-deprecating and putting yourself down, and then you're acting like I'm being entitled as if you were morally superior to me, when in reality is you're actually just a dishonest fuck. Like, how the fuck can you even act that way? You're just being dishonest. Like, completely dishonest. And then you're expecting me, the UDSF male, to be the UDJ male, to be dishonest like you. And I'm like, no, this is not some fucking crabs in a bucket behavior where we're just gonna like fucking, I don't know, circle jerk each other into dishonesty. I'm not doing that. I know what my fucking principles are, and I'm going to stand by them. But the UDUF man, I would argue, doesn't know what their principles are. And that's basically the problem. Because if they had their fucking priorities straight, if they had their principles straight, they would know where they're actually principally allowed and expected to be entitled as men. Because I would argue, just as an example, in a marriage, what is a man entitled to? Oh, that's right, submission. Submission, because Genesis chapter 3 verse 16, and I quote, your desire will be contrary to your husband, and yet he will still rule over you.
Men are entitled to the female burden of performance.
That is correct.
Which is that, just as women are entitled to the male burden of performance, which has never been shirked more than now in history by the SD men.
The shirking, yes. And where men lead, women follow. Because men are shirking their burden of performance, women are being like, okay, well, we're going to shirk our burden of performance. And then they masculinize themselves just to survive because the men are not putting in their burden of fucking performance. And it's disgusting. And when I look at UDF men, I'm just like, you guys, like, close, but you still got a long way to go.
Yeah, they're still the crabs in the bucket. We're the crabs outside of the bucket. and they're like getting mad at the crabs outside of the bucket for being those crabs. It's like,
And
well, you
not
should
being
get
in the
there
bucket
too.
with them.
Yeah, it's like you should be there too. Like, and if anything, we're the crabs outside the bucket that are reaching down into the bucket to pull them out.
Yeah.
And they're still ungrateful.
Yeah,
While
so
that's happening.
so much so
and
that
trying
they're
to pull us down. It's like
they're
when you
exactly
rescue
trying
a
to pull us
drowning
in.
person. You ever
Exactly.
see that where like people will get drowned trying to rescue
Yeah.
someone who's drowning?
This is where Samaritan laws come from. Literally, you go help somebody and then they blame you for a problem, and it's like, what the fuck? And that's UDUF behavior. That's consistent UDUF male behavior. They all do that. It's also SDUF female behavior. They also do that. Like unconscious focused men and women, they all act that way. And it's just like, stop fucking doing that. Like, you know, and they're all trying to be harmonious. And yeah, women should be harmonious towards men because that's proof of submission. That is the female burden of performance. But men have to be open and honest while simultaneously being authentic at the same time, because that's what's necessary to fulfill a woman's side of hypergamy. Because here's the thing. If a man is open and honest with her, well, guess what? He's actually going to be able to fulfill her beta buck side actually pretty well. But it's the subconscious focus in men, the authenticity, that's what fulfills the alpha side. And a lot of people just don't fucking know that. I've never stated that before one time in any of my content. I'm stating it here. That is the facts. That is the fucking truth. And who the fuck do these people think they are? And they literally believe that they are morally superior. Actually, I had another UDF man in my face getting pissed at me for holding his friend accountable. And then his friend, who is subconscious developed, end up like having suicidal ideation as a result of my criticisms of him. And then he told me that it was my fault that he was having suicidal ideation. When I'm like, no, I'm actually giving him proper life advice and actually helping him for real. But because you're so fucking harmonious and you're so fucking fake that you're doing the crabs in a bucket to your friend who obviously needs help. And I never abandoned him. But then he starts enabling his friend's behavior, and then his friend ends up leaving our friend group in the process and ends up making everything worse. And then I get blamed for it because, you know, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And it's just like, no, that's not on me. It's not my fault.
Yeah, it's like when you're UDUF, you see UDSF men giving constructive criticism, even if it hurts, is like poison. When in reality, it's just medicine that doesn't taste good. It's not actually poison.
Medicine that doesn't taste
It's just
good.
medicine that you don't like the taste of. So stop viewing it as poison when it's not. Just because you want to persist in harmony land where everything tastes good.
That'd be good for the thumbnail for this video. Medicine that doesn't taste good. That's fucking. It's a hard pill to swallow.
Authenticity is medicine.
Yeah, and this is where Rollo Tomasi starts grifting, because it's like, oh, the red pill's a hard pill to swallow, and it's like, no, this is much harder. That's why it's like it's no pill, because it's no pill that you can take is going to solve the fucking problem. You're either going to fucking grow up as a man, or you're not going to fucking grow up. It's what it comes down to. Are you going to grow up or not?
Also, even within, like, the red pill comes from the Matrix. What if you just saw everything as it is without the pill? Like, why do you need a pill to see things the way they are?
Exactly.
Like, why do you need this extra thing? Just start seeing it that way.
Yeah.
Why do you need something to do that for you?
Yeah.
Like, everything already is the way it is.
Why can't Neo look at Morpheus and be like, you know, yeah, this is obviously a fake world, but how do I know that your world's not fake too? Oh, and that goes into the big Matrix conspiracy theory that, like, it's just yet another thing of control. Oh, wait, that's exactly what Neo finds out in the third film. It's just the second film. It's just yet another means of control. The red pill itself is yet another means of control. So, of course, Rollo Tomasi stating that he's the red pill, that is kind of accurate, because yet it's another form of gynocentric fucking control, and he's not even aware of it. And it's just, it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. Gross. So, and here's the other thing. Like, you know, these SD men, they blame the top 4%. They're getting mad at other people's success instead of cheering on those that are actually successful. And we see this all the time with the Tate brothers, because if the Tate brothers, and I still maintain their control opposition, but if what's happening to the Tate brothers is even real, you constantly see UDF men shitting on them anyway. It's just that stupid, feminine, crabs in a bucket behavior. It's the same thing. And then, you know, the UDF man is constantly complaining about having a lack of confidence. And then I'm just like, well, confidence is a fucking myth. It doesn't exist. There is no such thing. You either give a fuck about what other people think, or you don't. And here's where wisdom comes into play. This is something that UDJ men understand. There are times to fit in, and there are times not to fit in. And the man who has UDJ is able to exert superior judgment to know when it is appropriate to fit in and when it is not appropriate.
Just like it's
to
when
fit
it's
in.
appropriate to be entitled and when it's not appropriate to be entitled.
Exactly. Yes.
Like, don't have this light switch brain mentality where it's like no entitlement ever or all entitlement ever. You actually have to take it case by case and be smart.
And this is basically the result, the final result, the wise result, the final result of the rite of passage that a UDJ male has completed. This is how he knows he's completed his rite of passage, that he has all of the masculine traits, that he is able to cover both sides of a woman's hypergamy, because he is able to exert superior judgment compared to other men, where he knows what is appropriate and what is not appropriate, given the environment that he's in or given the people that are present in his life. And they need to know that. Combined with, and this proves to a woman that this man, hey, he's got a lot of potential, because women are attracted to men with good future potential, just like men are attracted to women who have a clean slate sexual history. Okay? It's the same concept.
Yes, and the red pill is all about faking looking like you're going to have a good future potential. And then the woman gets with you, and then when you don't have that good future, you get divorced.
Yeah. And guess what? If you're able to actually do that and exercise that superior judgment, and which proves to a woman that you have great future potential, and guess what? That's how you actually become the apex of a woman's hypergamy. Literally at that moment. That is how. But then, here's the thing. If your woman has to criticize you, this is like the henpeckers, the naggers, whatnot. If they're acting that way, that means your apex of their hypergamy is either in question or you are not the apex of hypergamy at all. That's proof.
Also, you were saying something earlier about if a woman is willing to criticize you, listen up, because it actually
Yes.
takes a lot of effort on her part to even do that in the first place.
I'll explain why. The reason why is because you have female space and you have male space. Male space, men treat men, they give each other unsolicited advice. They shove advice down each other's throats all the time. That's how it is. And a man feels disrespected if he's receiving unsolicited advice from a man that does not deserve, or is not in the position, or is incapable, or does not have the proper reputation to be actually giving him advice, because it's like, well, hold on, you're a fucking hypocrite. Why the fuck should I listen to you? And that's when a man's going to get upset at receiving unsolicited advice. But if it's around other competent men, he's like, yes, give me the unsolicited advice now. I need to fucking know. I got unsolicited advice yesterday. I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I was told by one of our friends that I smelled really bad and I should not be in public. And he was right. And I immediately handled that the first opportunity that I had. And I was like, oh, dang, I did not plan on smelling bad today, but I did. He's like, yeah, man, you're pretty ripe. And I'm like, damn. Okay, yeah, I needed to hear that. Thank you so much for telling me.
That's the medicine. Doesn't taste good, but
biblically,
you need to hear it.
There's a Bible verse that does this, and it comes from the book of Proverbs. And it's like, if you correct a fool, he will hate you, but you correct a wise man, he will love you. I argue
That's my favorite.
I love it. I'll
never forget that.
Yeah. I will argue that the fools are basically the men who aren't UDSF, statistically. I would argue that because they don't have the judgment that goes along with it. Because a man exercising proper judgment, he is all about getting that unsolicited advice because he knows that unsolicited advice is going to improve him and make him better. That is so important. The thing is, though, is that women in female space and how women treat women, they never give each other unsolicited advice, ever. With the exception of maybe your mother doing it or maybe your grandmother if you're really fucking up as a woman. And it's very rare that it actually happens, that they get unsolicited advice. To the point that if a woman is receiving unsolicited advice from other women, their ego is completely destroyed, destroys their female pride. It is actually a big problem and can create enmity between them and those women. Well, here's the problem. They have to ask each other for advice. They have to solicit advice. So women will project that onto men. So women actually feel less feminine and actually feel more masculine having to give their husband unsolicited advice. So one time, CK, my wife, she gave me unsolicited advice because she was concerned about my posture, right? And she gave me a technique on how I can adjust my shoulders so that my posture would be fine. And then after 6 months, my posture was fixed, literally because of that piece of advice. And the fact that she went so far to even go to the effort of giving me unsolicited advice, I should feel embarrassed as a man immediately. And I did. And I took that advice and I immediately made that change. Because not taking that advice means that she's going to continue to give me unsolicited advice, where then she's henpecking me, she's nagging me at that moment. And the reason why that's actually happening is that because then all of a sudden me being the apex of her hypergamy is basically in question at that moment. And as a man, you can never, ever let your apex of hypergamy be in question because that would basically prove to a woman that you are shirking your male burden of performance and then she's going to feel unsafe in the relationship. And that could lead to monkey branching, that could lead to cheating, that could lead to a development phase, that could lead to her initiating divorce. It's absolutely terrible because she doesn't know what to do with her hypergamy at that moment. And you as a man have to have the responsibility of maintaining the apex of hypergamy for your woman no matter what. So, and as a result, this is an example of where your woman can actually help you remain at the apex if you as a man are actually fucking willing to listen at that moment. You know, like, you know, and there's times when and if you're using superior male judgment, there's times when you should listen to your woman, and there's times where you shouldn't listen to your woman. You have to have that superior judgment that comes with being a UDJ male, that comes with being UDSF as a male. You have to have that. And a lot of men don't even fucking understand that.
You're saying another thing, too, about how to get to that point is to understand Socratic questioning.
Yes.
That's a must if you're married.
You have to. If you don't understand,
have kids.
Yeah, because like you have to understand women and children, you have to put them all in the category of children. And how you communicate with a woman compared to how do you communicate with a man, because women don't like getting unsolicited advice, especially even from their husbands. So what you have to do, just like with children, you just have to ask them a bunch of questions. Sometimes they're leading questions, sometimes they're not leading questions. But you ask them questions until they get to the point where they come to their own proper conclusion. And this is where you as a man can exercise your superior judgment and literally lead your women and children to the proper conclusion of proper judgment that you are supporting. Instead of just saying, oh, you know, I'm the man and I'm the authority, and you're like acting like a tyrant in your relationship and saying that this is just how it is. And sometimes it is necessary to do that. But again, the superior male judgment of being UDSF as a man, you are able to understand the nuance of when that's appropriate and when that is not appropriate.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you're punching like with or without the glove. Like you want to be gloved when you're punching. Because like judgment is a punch.
I did say earlier today in Discord that gloves are off.
Yeah, and if you're going to go after a woman, you want to have gloves on.
Exactly.
Because they are very sensitive to
extremely
the judgment
sensitive
and criticism from a man.
Because they cannot.
And the Socratic questioning is the way to put the glove on.
It gets it around.
What's that book? Ward Farnsworth?
Ward Farnsworth's book called Socratic. Every man needs to read that book. Every man needs to understand Socratic questioning. It is literally the ideal way to communicate with women and children. Even when you're not even in a relationship with a woman, okay? And you're dealing with fear of being a creep as a UDSF male, and you're dealing with that, or even as a UDUF male, you can like just ask her questions over and over and over, which there's a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I think it's like chapter 1 or chapter 2. The author, Dale Carnegie, is literally stating, you get them to talk about themselves. Well, you do that through Socratic questioning, literally. And that actually has the opportunity to actually generate attraction with the woman because you are questioning her and making things all about her, and it engages her solipsistic nature. And then it proves to her that you have superior judgment. And then basically you actually have the opportunity to cultivate apex of hypergamy in her. What is another word for apex of hypergamy in a woman that isn't yours? Her crushing on you. That's how you cultivate a crush. Gents, fucking understand. We're going to have a course about this. And that's how you do it. Asking her questions. And making sure that the questions are not just like any question. Questions that actually have value and worth to you at first. And then based on her answers, you'll start to understand what's important to her. And then you start asking her questions about what's important to her. And then you will literally cultivate the crush in the process. Like, that's how you do it. Okay, but that would require you to actually like get over your fear of being a creep or get over your fear of rejection and actually talk to women. But it's a nice little safe security blanket because you're just asking questions. You're not making judgments. You're not creeping her out because you're just interviewing her. Like, holy shit.
Yeah. And thank you for suggesting the book. That's really helpful for me, especially because of extroverted feeling demon.
Yes.
All too often,
Yes.
I'm just like punching gloves off all the time.
Yes.
Without even realizing that I'm doing that.
Yes.
And I can see now all the harm it caused in my life and how it could have been avoided if I had just read that book, which I'm going to be reading tonight.
Yeah, I gave. What's interesting is that our friend Jay Patel in the Discord, he's like a mod. He actually got into like a really freak accident, and he like asked me, you know, I'm here in the hospital, like what do I do? And I'm like, here's what you do: read Socratic by Ward Farnsworth, and it completely fundamentally transformed his life to the point where he is basically, in my opinion, anytime I've interacted with him, like 100% of the time, he's Socratic, all the time. And this is a man who is extroverted thinking trickster. And extroverted thinking trickster types, does not matter what cognitive development or focus you have, guess what? In men, or in women, they have this problem where they do not ask clarifying questions, and it really pisses off a lot of people. It is how they actually alienate other people, by not asking clarifying questions. But if you're being Socratic, guess what? You're giving clarifying questions constantly, which means your reputation that you're not aware of with your extroverted thinking trickster is just going to skyrocket. Everyone is going to be treating you with respect and preferential treatment consistently. You're going to get loyalty out of it, or you're going to get consideration out of it. Everyone is going to want to be your friend. And that, in my opinion, is the crux of the message that Dale Carnegie was trying to articulate in his book. He just didn't do a really good job psychologically. But when you combine How to Win Friends and Influence People with what is being stated in Socratic, you literally have like the ultimate social skills plan that you can always execute as a man to guarantee that you don't have to deal with fear of being a creep. You just start asking questions. That's all it is. The problem is that are you like considerate enough as a man with your superior judgment, right? Well, proof of superior judgment is being considerate, to be fair, to like look at a woman that you meet in a moment and just think to yourself, okay, what kind of questions can I ask her? Like if I say a woman reading a book, I'm like, oh, what book are you reading? And then I create a conversation with her about that and why it's important to her, which also helps me suss her out whether or not she should actually be in commitment category or sex only category. And if she's sex only category, I auto reject her like on the spot.
Yeah, hopefully
basically.
she's not reading Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh God, tell me about it. Like, yeah, no thanks. I'm not down for that. Not down for that at all. So, but anyway, like, and if you're doing Socratic questioning, like a woman, like in general, like, and children as well, they have no choice but to show you more respect. It's literally cultivating respectful behavior from them. Because you are leading with respect by asking them questions about what's actually important to them.
Yeah, you're giving them the respect of not making assumptions.
Exactly. And because here's the thing that I've noticed about all UDJ men really struggle with is people making assumptions about them, to the point, in my opinion, it is the number one way that a UDSF male can just be instantly feel disrespected by anyone. Women, children, other men, it does not matter. It does not matter. They just instantly feel disrespected when there's assumptions being made, because they cannot handle it, because the J part of their octogram is just like, yeah, no, we can't do that at all. So this is absolutely critical. And so as a result of you doing this, what this ends up doing is enabling an ability within a man to be able to ensure that he is the apex of a woman's hypergamy. And that is this: acting entitled. Entitled to the right things. Okay? So here's the thing. A man then is enabled to act entitled to the good treatment of women in general.
Which is your birthright.
It is your birthright.
That's how it should be treated. Not as
Absolutely.
an entitlement, but as a birthright.
As a birthright.
Entitlement
Yes.
is a pejorative term. It has like
Yes.
a negative connotation.
Yes.
Look at it as a birthright instead.
Yeah, because as you stated, the rib, right? So women were created for men to be fit helpers for men, not the other way around. Okay, so that's one reason why you can be entitled to good treatment from women in general. This is like going to piss off especially a lot of the Christians out there. Oh, you know, she should only give good treatment to her husband. It's like, but here's the thing: you're inhibiting a woman from gaining a husband if you're teaching her she doesn't have to treat men well in general.
Yeah, if she has her guard up all the time, she's never going to find
exactly.
the right guy.
And fuck that. Like it's bullshit.
But the reason she has her guard up in the first place is because of these nasty guys. So we kind of understand, but also it's still going to prevent her from finding the right guy anyway, even though she's justified in having her guard up, kind of, because of the subconscious developed social order.
Yep. If the UDJ
That's why it's so much harder to be a woman.
Yes,
than anyone gives them credit for.
So much harder.
They just don't get it, especially these red pill guys who think men are so oppressed. It's so pathetic. They have no idea how hard women actually have it and the ways that they have it hard.
And then
not
they
the
shit
ways
on
that
women
don't.
for that too. And it's just like, oh, look at all these safety nets. Yeah, because you're being hypergamous towards the safety net, you fucking bitch. Like, no. Here's another thing. Men in general deserve good treatment from women in general, especially because of Genesis, especially like, your wife. You are entitled to it. Genesis 3:16, we already talked about it. Your desire will be contrary to your husband, but he will still rule over you. And you can be entitled to submission in the context of your relationship. And here's another thing. Also, because guess what? Men in general are willing to die for women in general, even complete strangers. And like
the Titanic.
Yeah.
Women and children first.
Women and children first. Yep. And that's just how it is, because men are the disposable sex, and women in general need to be showing good treatment and affording that respect to men in general, literally just on that point alone. This is why I have zero tolerance for women who do not treat men well. And then I look at women who, especially if they're single and they're not treating men well, I'm like, yeah, you ain't getting married. You're going to be in sex only category your whole life. And you're never going to get your hypergamy satisfied. And then you're going to be oscillating between alpha fucks and beta bucks with every new dick that's inside of you.
Yeah, it's like those girls you passed on the trail. Like one of them get out of the way for you, but her friends did not.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, you'd make a great wife, but your friends, not so much.
Yeah, I said that. Oh my God.
That's
like,
why.
I made one melt and the other two like really fucking pissed.
But that's
and then
why,
they were also pissed at her that I was complimenting. They're also
because
pissed
they're
at
also
her.
crab in the bucket.
Yeah, crabs in a bucket bullshit. It's just like, anyway. But here's the reality of the situation, guys. Once you are the apex of, a woman will literally do anything for you. She'll do anything for you. It doesn't matter what societal influences she has. It doesn't matter what church influences she has. It does not matter what family influence she has or whatever influence you UDUF men are afraid of, or even the SD men, but especially the UDF men, because I fear of rejection and fear of being a creep at the same time. And it's like, yeah, no, she will literally do anything for you. It's like that woman that's willing to sneak out of her parents' house, you know, at night just to go screw the guy who's homeless, living under a bridge on a mattress. Like that, like...
Yeah, and these red pill guys, they kind of get it. It's where the phrase comes from. It's like...
that's actually in the Rational Male books.
Women make rules for betas, but then
yes.
they break them for alphas.
That make rules
That's
for betas.
what this is actually referring to.
Exactly.
But it's not alphas, it's the alpha.
Yeah,
it's
the alpha.
The apex.
The apex.
Not just alpha category, whatever that even means according to them. Like, it's probably not even actually alpha, it's just machismo.
Yes. And this is and she'll do anything for you, and this is for better or worse, by the way. This is like a permanent thing, unless for some reason she can get a man who is the apex of hypergamy. That's not it. This is one of the reasons, and we talked about this 2 episodes ago when we're talking about like how rape biblically can like fuck with a woman. It's because like that man is basically becoming the apex of her hypergamy basically immediately. Because women in general, they like being dominated. We know that they have their rape fantasies. We know, you know, statistically, as you showed on the episode, based on the ones that are even actually like reported, they'll still romanticize those men that did rape them and were very forceful and sexually assaulted
30
them.
to 60%, depending.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's such a high number, and like.
And that's just the ones willing to admit it.
Yeah, those
are probably higher.
Yeah, and it's for better or worse. And like they can't help it but romanticize it. It happens over and over and over. We have proof of this. So as a result, being the apex of a woman's hypergamy is a huge responsibility for
and a burden, depending on who it is.
And a burden, correct.
If it's the wrong woman.
If it's the wrong woman, because like you know, it is for better or worse. You know, and then here's the other thing, like, how can you tell that you're not the apex? If a woman puts anything above you, and that could be church, it could be family, it could be a past relationship, whatever, that means by default you're not the apex. Yeah, and if you're married to her, you're going to get development phased. You're fucked.
And if she used to do it but now stopped,
yes,
that's how you know you lost apex status.
Yes.
And you should be immediately concerned and trying to figure out
absolutely
what happened.
Should. Yeah. In that situation, I would actually recommend taking on another woman immediately. Because then then that gets into the women's biological mode of mate choice copying. Oh, this man who's not the apex of my hypergamy anymore, or oh, this man never was the apex of my hypergamy. Oh, he just got another woman.
Yeah, and not spinning plates, like actually keeping the plate.
And then exactly. And then her mate choice copying. So he's committed to another woman. He married another woman. Her mate, this other married woman who is like questioning apex or he is not the apex. He can become the apex of hypergamy specifically because he is another woman's apex. Literally just on that. And people don't even realize that. People don't understand that polygyny protects your position as apex of a woman's hypergamy.
Yeah, it keeps you on the pedestal.
It keeps you on the pedestal where you fucking belong and where it is your birthright to be there, as it should be. Like this is where the verse where God said to Israel, "Thou shalt not have any gods before me." That's in Exodus chapter 20. That is the 10 Commandments. Okay. The reason why is because God's relationship with humanity echoes a man's relationship with a woman. And thou shalt not have any other men before me. Yeah. But if you're not the apex of hypergamy, she has another man above you.
That includes these like church girls putting the priest above their husband.
Oh, yeah.
Or church above husband.
Yeah. Like you were telling me that story about the confession or whatever.
Yeah, or confessing things to the priest, but then withholding those things from the husband. That's proof that he's not the apex, because
Proof he's not
she
the
should be
apex.
confessing all of that to him.
Exactly.
If he's truly on the
Because
pedestal, which he should
biblically,
be.
yeah, biblically, he's supposed to be the priest of the home anyway. A woman should not be outsourcing that priestliness, that priestly role from her husband to a higher authority in the church. And if she's doing that, you're not the apex of hypergamy. That's proof right there. And you need to fucking like flee from that woman, or and exercise your Proverbs chapter 21 rights and flee from her. Or you should, without divorcing her, because you're not allowed to divorce her. She'd have to commit sexual immorality, and then you have the right to divorce her. But until then, you can still flee from her and separate yourself from her. Okay, and men biblically have that right. Women don't biblically have that right. A lot of people don't understand that. Flee from her, and then while you're fleeing, go marry another woman, and then you can activate her mate choice copying, and then boom, you can actually get back into the apex mode at where you belong.
Yeah, the worst thing you can do is stay and try to like argue your way back onto the pedestal. That's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
There's nothing you can say to do that.
As Rollo Tomassi said, this is one of the areas that I actually agree with him with. Never explicate, only demonstrate through action. And I agree, because the men who explicate, they're weak. And again, the woman will see, well, you're just being fake, because the woman's will be like, the way you're acting now is not how you've traditionally acted. There's something wrong there. So you're just being a fucking hypocrite. Therefore, you're fakes. Therefore, I get to automatically dismiss everything you're saying.
Yeah, I've done that too, like where I try to negotiate instead of demonstrate, and then I end up in that trap. And it's like, I thought I could if I just say something the right way, or if I just articulate a certain way, like it doesn't matter. Like the more you talk, the worse it is, even if you're saying the right things.
And there's huge benefits to being the apex of your woman's hypergamy. Huge benefits. For example, not only will they be willing to do anything for you, that includes also change their religion, by the way, just throwing that out there, but also they protect the apex of their hypergamy. They protect it. They protect them. This is like all of a sudden the man ends up going to jail or whatever. She doesn't get with some other guy. She actually goes to school. She ends up learning how to become an attorney herself, and then she actually gets him out of jail. Literally. Like that kind of stuff. If you're the apex of hypergamy, the woman will basically, she will move heaven, hell, and earth for you. Very much so. That's the kind of loyalty that a lot of men out there heavily crave, to the point where they oftentimes believe that's not even possible. It's possible if you're the apex, and only possible if you're the apex. And basically, in the woman's mind, if you're her apex, you could do no wrong. There's no wrong that you can do, except one thing. And this is where being the apex of hypergamy is absolutely critical in terms of being a huge responsibility for a man. Because if you are the apex of a woman's hypergamy and you reject that woman, this is where the statement, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. That is the only way to truly scorn a woman, actually, is because you were the apex of her hypergamy, and you, either by your actions or your intentions or none of it, or you just by shirking your male responsibility, which tells her that you're rejecting her, okay? Because women, especially if they're UD, they have fear of rejection as well. Just like SDJ women have fear of being a creep because they're more masculinized, right? And of course, if they're SDUF, they have both, and that's a problem. SDUF women, it's like they're very, very hot to handle. They're like the big hot potato. You have to be really careful with them, even though at least they're harmonious. But the thing is, it's like hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. That's where it comes from, because you are the apex of her hypergamy and you're rejecting her. So like, for example, let's say you were a time hoe. And so what is a time hoe again?
Yeah, we mentioned this last time. It's Patrice O'Neill's concept. Like, women use men for their time and attention the way men
resources
like to use women for their sexuality.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you were giving up your time in exchange for nothing, in other words, simping, then you are her time hoe. You are in time hoe category, according to her, and she views you basically as a loser.
Yes.
Women view time hoes the same way men view women who are sluts.
Mm-hmm.
Like giving up what they have to offer without getting anything back in return that they would want.
So imagine you're a time hoe, and imagine you end up getting with an undeserving MILF. We actually have a friend who was simping for an older woman, and actually has simped for older women, actually had like a 1-year-long sexual relationship with a woman who was much older, at least 10 years, even more than that, basically. I'm guilty of this too. So I'm just stating my hypocrisy here when I say this, but I'm speaking from like fucking experience. MILFs, these women, like, if you become the apex of her hypergamy, and it's usually with some youthful man, because they've already been run through. They've had a lot of men inside of them already. Like they've had a lot of imprinting from other men. Like telegony is a problem if they actually produce your child. Like they're undeserving. They are undeserving. True masculinity would basically state that the MILF, the mother I would like to fuck, which is what it means, and you're a time hoe towards her, and you become the fucking apex of her hypergamy. You don't even have to have sex with her. Just you actually being a time hoe could actually cause you to become the apex. But here's the other thing. So it's dangerous being a time hoe.
And she's older, the guy's younger. She's going to see that bright future because her future is diminished because she's older. Correct. She's going to see this young guy with his whole life ahead in front of him and see all the potential and increase the odds that he's going to be seen as the apex just by that fact alone.
It's really sad when you
especially if he's UD.
Yeah. Especially if he's UD. It's even more problematic. But we also see statistically that the SD men are marrying older women anyway because they're just naturally simpish to begin with. But here's the problem with MILFs. MILFs have resources. MILFs have life experience. MILFs, these cougars, they are man-eaters, okay? And they can create legal trouble. They'll stalk you. They're also very territorial, so if they see you with other women, they will probably murder that woman and murder you, or even your children. There's actually a scene in the Bible about this. 2 women are in front of King Solomon, and both women are making claim to the baby. And then Solomon is like, okay, well, we're just going to have to cut the baby in half. And the true mother fell at her feet and was like on her knees and is like, no, just give her the child, make sure the child survives. And then Solomon's like, okay, give that woman the child. That's the true mother. You see what I'm saying? That's UDJ, superior judgment right there, using that wisdom that he has. It solves that problem. Xanatos, exactly.
Xanatos Gambit.
But the problem is, imagine you're being a time hoe, and then you actually do have sex with the MILF. Having sexuality, if you're being a time hoe, you may become the apex of the hypergamy at that point to the older woman. But then imagine being a time hoe and having sex with her. You are the apex, and she will haunt you for the rest of your life. I still have so many stalkers that I have to deal with regularly. Women that I was a time hoe and I never even had sex with. Then there is the one woman, the worst one. And she was in the ego hacker community. I was a time hoe towards her. I did have a sexual relationship with her. It was before I was with Railgun. She actually assaulted me and battered me, in my own home. And I had the police remove her from my home. Very horrible situation. And she would continue to stalk me over time, to the point where she actually showed up many states away here in town to stalk me. I had people taking photos of her sitting on the park bench of where I would typically film the podcast on the CS Joseph channel. And the police have had to drag her off of me. It was really fucking bad. And there's one particular situation where I actually believed my life was in danger because of her behavior. And this is what happens if you mismanage the apex of hypergamy. You're looking at being completely fucked over and potentially dead, by the way, gentlemen.
Yeah, and the more of a bright future you have, the more discriminating you should be with your time and attention, especially towards women that are not yours.
Very, exactly.
Because you will run into this and it will cause problems.
And here's the thing. You always have to ask yourself, because Numbers chapter 30 in the Bible is women have their 4 statuses. You have the divorced woman, you have the widow, you have the married woman, and you have the woman that belongs to her father. Which of those 4 statuses does that woman actually fall under? And if I knew it at the time, I wouldn't have gotten with the MILF. Wouldn't. Absolutely would not have gotten with her. It didn't matter how fine she was. I wouldn't have gotten with her at all because it's like, okay, well, who do you actually belong to? Do you belong to your father? Which men did you actually do the marriage covenant with, etc.? I'd have to have your father's permission if you did belong to your father. You see what I'm saying? And clearly you're not a widow. Clearly you're not divorced. So it's one of those other 2 where you actually, and here's the thing. Her body count, based on her behavior, I would estimate is in triple digits. And it's at that point where she's like, I don't know how many men have been inside of me. And it's like, how the fuck can you even investigate that? Don't even do it. But I was being a time hoe, and then I ended up having sex with her, and then I ended up bringing upon this fucking curse on my life as a result. And we're just using this as an example. You have to be very fucking careful about how you manage apex of hypergamy.
And if that happens to you, you're almost better off acting SD or pretending to be a loser, just so you lose the apex status, and then she moves on to a new host.
Here's another thing. I've actually broken up with women in my life when I actually realized, because I would ask them questions about their sexual history, and I would be in a relationship with them, but they wouldn't even, they were actually protecting the men of their past. One or two men of their past. They were actually protecting it to the point of not giving me information about them, that kind of thing. And that's happened to me multiple times in my life. And at that moment, I'm just like, okay, clearly I'm not the apex here. I can't have a relationship with you.
Were they protecting the men or themselves?
Probably both, I would say.
But mostly.
But those men, those men were the apexes of their hypergamy, and that woman will do anything for the apex, and they're not even conscious that they do it.
So because they weren't willing to throw those guys under the bus, even though they're no longer around, that's proof that
Correct.
Definitely you're not the apex.
Correct.
Doesn't mean they are, but
Correct.
Definitely you're not.
And basically, at that moment, I'm being a time hoe, because I'm giving her time, attention, and resources when I'm clearly not the apex, and I am entitled to being, it is my birthright to be the apex of that woman's hypergamy if I am giving her time, attention, and resources. And all of a sudden I find out she's not, yeah, definitely breaking up. Back when I was a degenerate and not living the way that I have now, making sure that, I'm following the Bible, my life is rededicated to Christ, all those important things, from a spiritual belief system perspective. In those days, absolutely would break up with her. And then to the point, it's it is completely wrong and cannot do it. And even she herself, because these women will gaslight themselves into believing that those men are not her apex, even though she acts like it's a apex. Because you can't take a woman at her word, because she's constantly changing her mind all the time. It's not that they're liars. They may be liars, but it's not that they're liars, that their hormones are changing even in a 24-hour period, that they're constantly changing their mind. So you can't actually take what they're saying seriously. So when it comes to a woman who has a sexual history, you have to be actually very, very careful. This is why,
I don't even ask. I just go by the behavior.
Exactly.
Like, oh, this woman has the behavior. Clearly, her body count is extremely high.
But the men don't even that's why they're watching the show and listening to the show, because they don't even have these skills. They don't understand that you have to have the superior judgment to actually judge a woman by her actions, because you have to. And then 50% of men, regardless of cognitive development or focus, they are in body temple and they are in mind temple. These men, they actually lead with judging by intent first and not action, versus the soul temple and the heart temple judge by action first. So they have it a little bit easier. So the body temple men and the mind temple men do not have it easier. And this is a type grade 6 vector for you folks, by the way. But so little nugget for you folks. But yeah, it's a big problem. Here's what's also interesting. UD women, they stalk men by default. They're the women who have expectations that men have social medias, so they can go stalk their social medias or whatever. Because they're trying to see whether or not they should be crushing on the man to begin with. That's fine. But the problem is that once you become apex of, because they're trying to determine, is this guy the apex of my hypergamy? You see what I'm saying? But then you get the women who have become the apex of hypergamy, and you got the apex with the wrong woman, and then all of a sudden, basically, your life is hell after that. And this is literally the cause. Like family law, false allegations, these types of things, literally all come from this. Here's another thing. Actually, here's something really interesting. So I have a wife out there, okay? I have a wife out there, and we are still biblically married. I did not give her a certificate of divorce. She went backwards. She went with the man that she was with before me, but based on her behavior, I was the apex of hypergamy and the apex of hypergamy. She went backwards to the man that she was with before me, and then she's lashing out. She can't let go of me constantly. Even on her Discord profile, there's a statement about me, even to the point of even asking this guy to stalk me on her behalf, and he did, because he's simping. And it's
that's the ultimate time.
Yes, yes.
What the fuck is he doing?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, and
that's pathetic.
She's committing adultery, because we did make the marriage covenant, and we did it, and she's technically my wife, but I'm still the apex of her hypergamy. And she is consistently doing this whole woman-scorned, onslaught-ish behavior, trying to make my life miserable in the process. When in reality is, she's just proven to everyone she's nothing more than a hoe, and she's an adulteress. And what's also interesting is that, mutual friends are supporting the adultery while simultaneously actually, pretending to be Christian. And it's You can't fucking do that. That's like entirely against the Bible. Jesus said, if you love me, you will follow my commands. So are you following the commands? They're not following the commands. And so that's also a big problem. So it's and again, this is just, an example of being the apex of hypergamy, with, and I married her, and I'm like, okay. So, and I made that choice, and I fall under, the biblical rules of marriage at that point. So I have to be like very careful about my behavior. But then she's acted this way, and she's been acting this way for years. She can't let go. Here's another thing. Here's another risk about apex of hypergamy. If you're an SI user man and you're with an NI user woman, the NI user woman can't let go of you even more so. The SI user women have a higher chance of being able to let go of apex of hypergamy, but the NI user women can't.
Well, that's a relief.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will sleep
Yes.
better tonight just knowing that
Yes.
fact.
So it's actually higher risk to SI user men, even much higher. So, and that's another thing from a psych. But we don't talk about psychology, on the Hacked Off podcast, apparently.
No, and if this is not enough for you, school.com/CS Joseph.
Yeah, and it's just it's such, and they can't let go, and they'll never be able to let go. And basically, I am haunting them. Like whenever that man's like inside of her, or whatever, like still thinking of me. And she'd claim otherwise, but she's still thinking of me. And she's thinking of me. And that's the problem with apex of hypergamy, is that women cannot help but compare dicks. They can't help it. This is why virgins only. This is why I recommend virgins only, virgins only, virgins only. They will always compare dicks.
And that's why that
every
chart
time.
I showed you too, like the body count, like stable marriage rate, just declines with the more bodies.
Follows Pareto
That's
principle.
because like women with like 20, 30, 40, triple digit body count, whatever, they're comparing the top attributes of those like 100 men against you as a singular individual. Like good luck competing against all the top qualities of all those men combined as a one guy.
And her biology does it through telegony. Yeah. Her own biology does it with telegony, because her body is basically choosing which traits get passed on to the child that she gives birth to by default. You want to know why the children don't look like their fathers? They're either step simps or their mother was a complete fucking hoe. Like that's it. So here's another thing about SD men. Like, you have the SD men who the woman ends up having to settle for because she hits epiphany phase. She realizes her looks can't attract the top 4% of men anymore, so she ends up having to settle. And here's the thing. SD men assume that they are the apex, but they're not. The UD men that they used to be with, the alphas, the true alpha who's able to cover both sides of women's hypergamy, that's the true alpha, the top 4% of men. Like the SD men, they're not the apex. And the woman who's settling for him, do you know what she does? She gaslights herself into believing that he is the apex until she no longer can. And then years later, initiates divorce, also known as development phase. This is the actual cause of development phase. Like, holy shit, that's a thing.
Yeah, that combined with his bright future not panning out at the same time. And it all occurs right around
Because he's resting on his laurels.
Yes.
And so he has no bright future.
And all those things converge at roughly the same time, and then that's what, epiphany phase, or is that the other phase?
Yeah. Whereas
Or is it development? Which is it?
Development phase.
That's development phase.
When they are initiating divorce.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Virgins have no issue with this. And, and here's the other thing. Do you know what's really great about my wife, CK? Is that she has this expectation of women where it's like, oh, you want to join our family? Oh, you want to be my sister wife? Oh. She has the expectation, even if women are not in a relationship with me, she has the expectation while simultaneously just basically, and it's been proven over and over and over again, such that she actually has the assumption now. She runs with this as a TI demon assumption that I will become the apex of hypergamy of women that I meet constantly, all the time. She's aware of this, but she also expects it from other women. To the point where she will, there are times where it comes to single women who are not in relationships, that if she sees those women and not having me be their apex, it bothers the ever-loving shit out of her, and she will not be friends with them. I find that very fascinating. So this is part of women and their biology and their psychology being supportive of the male polygynous sexual strategy. Right there. And they are actually managing apex of hypergamy with other women on the behalf of their man. It's fucking amazing. And of course, she's my virgin bride. Of course she'd do that. It's fucking phenomenal. It's so good. I love that. So as a result, obviously the apex can be the ruin of other men, but it can also be like the boon of other men. And this is why the apex, ultimately, if it's mismanaged, creates cheating in women, and it's horrible, But the bottom line is that not only do you want to be the apex of hypergamy with your woman, you have to be. You don't have a choice, because it's also proof that you're not
it's that or
shirking
nothing.
your-
You're better off single. Like, don't settle for less. That's also simping, settling for less.
Yeah, because
you're
they're
putting yourself
pussy
down.
maxing. They're pussy
Yeah.
maxing. Oh, it's so disgusting. This is why men need to avoid fornication, and I maintain that fornication, which is extramarital sex, by definition, biblically, is rape. It is sexual assault.
Especially if you're UD spinning plates, you're going to be
Yeah.
the apex with all these women that you're trying to spin plates with. They're
Oh
not going to want to
God!
leave you
And
alone.
and that's what happened. Like even our mutual friend Chris Taylor has stated how, Chase, you just have the worst habit of just breaking women. You just break women, and the reason why is because he's talking about how, like, I reject women and they freak out and then they harm me and harm my life, and they're scorned or whatever. Like, you have a tendency of creating scorned women. The reason why is because for years I've been mismanaging the apex of hypergamy consistently. And that's actually the cause of a lot of the problems and trouble in my life, and to the point where it's actually harmed my children in the process, which is also like a huge regret of mine. I wish I had this information when I was like 18. Like, that's so critical. And a lot of people don't even realize the value of it.
You know what's even more pathetic is these like SD guys that claim to have high body counts. Like even Walter from Fresh and Fit, he claimed to have 1,000 body count. He's lying, of course. But even if it were true, how many of those women view him as the apex? Probably none. It's almost like a self-own when you say that. Like, oh, my body count's this high. Well, if that were true and you were even remotely the apex, a percentage of those women would be making your life hell right now.
Yeah.
But the fact that that's not happening to you is proof that you're a low-value male. Doesn't matter if you have a high body count. You think that makes you a higher value man. It's either a lie or it's just proof that you're not the apex of any of those women's hypergamy.
Maybe he's being effeminate and gaslighting himself. Oh wait, that's what
probably is.
SD men do. As much as like women are having to gaslight themselves into believing their man's the apex of hypergamy, because they're like, oh, I can change him, I can make him more masculine because I'm kind of masculine myself because I'm an SDJ woman, and it's like, no.
Yeah, iron sharpens iron, but not female iron does not sharpen male iron.
No
That's
such
not
thing.
happening.
Yeah, they're not even butter knives. They're just soft and pliable. They're Play-Doh. There's no sharpness there. It's just, are they fresh Play-Doh or used up Play-Doh? That's the problem. And that's the whole point behind the Play-Doh model that we talk about in episode 3, is because the used up Play-Doh girls, like, sometimes even they themselves may not actually be consciously aware of who is their apex. It's only through questioning from another man or judging her by her actions that you can determine that, hey, I'm not the apex. You may not know who it is, but you know that you're not the apex, and you have to be the apex. So bottom line is, gents, avoid becoming the apex of the woman you don't want to keep. You just absolutely have to do that. If you're going to have sex with a woman, it's because you better be fucking keeping her, like, straight up. And I've talked about this in my season 4 content. You have to do that. And I regret being degenerate. I regret not doing this.
So what do you do if you find yourself to be the apex of a woman you don't want, and you did not have sex with her, but she still views you as the apex? Like, how do you get out of that?
When I've been in that situation, what I've actually done is I have introduced her to other men, basically. That's what I've done. And then she is their problem. That's what I've done. Or I've encouraged them to go back to the man who actually is the apex and try to help them reconcile, which technically is what the church should be doing, to be fair. And that's another thing about that. But if you're gonna have sex with a woman, you better fucking keep her. Otherwise, like, you're destroying yourself. You're actually destroying other men. You're destroying her. You're destroying everybody. You're just a fucking destroyer. Like, you can't fucking do this. Did you have that that Bible app?
Yes.
All right, cool. Let's
one
go
second.
to Ecclesiastes, which is the final fucking point of this episode. So start at 26.
Start at 26.
And then 27 and 28 as well.
Okay. I find more bitter than death the woman who is a snare, whose heart is a trap. This is the right one, right?
Yep.
And whose hands are chains. The man who pleases God will escape her, but the sinner she will ensnare. Look, says the teacher, this is what I have discovered, adding one thing to another to discover the schemes of all things. While I was still searching but not finding, I found one upright man among 1,000, but not one upright woman among them all.
Yep. Which basically, in some translations say the word virtuous, some translations say the word wise. But the bottom line is, and I believe like the ESV, English Standard Version, which is my favorite version other than YLT and the oldest translations that are available at blueletterbible.com. The point is this, is that like Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, is literally, and this is like the book that he wrote like before he died. This was like his final thing. And he's saying that there is something more bitter than death in life, and that is the woman whose heart is a trap, basically, is a snare, and her hands are shackles, they're chains, right? And it's only the righteous man who pleases God who will escape her. Otherwise, the wicked man will be ensnared by her. That's the one thing that's worse than death in the world. And that happens due to a man mismanaging the apex of hypergamy in women. And then he states afterwards, by the way, there's only 1 out of 1,000 men who are virtuous, only 1 out of 1,000, but not one woman. Not one. That's why you have to be absolutely fucking careful. Your dick is a loaded gun, and even your time, attention, and resources as a man, you being a potential time hoe, is a loaded gun.
Yeah, like I said, every sperm cell is a tiny little credit card.
A tiny little credit card, exactly. And you have to be really careful to manage your sexuality, guys. You can't do this. Don't fornicate. Only be in committed sexual relationships. You don't even have the expectation of monogamy. Have a committed sexual relationship and then add additional women. But then the Bible says, remember the wife of your youth, which means remember your first wife. Okay, don't forget her. She was with you the whole step of the way. And you have to do that. Okay, like, gentlemen, you have to understand the risk is clear. And you literally have the wisest man who ever lived literally stating, here's the thing that is worse than death. And that is as a result of mismanaging the apex of a woman's hypergamy.
And if you can't control your libido to not spin plates to avoid that risk, then you're just an idiot.
Yeah,
and you're short-sighted, and you deserve what's coming to you.
You're not masculine.
But
yes.
if you're SD, you're probably not going to be the apex anyway, so you're still a piece of shit.
Yes.
But if you're UD, definitely don't be spinning plates.
Yeah, it's even higher risk. The higher up you go in the male hierarchy, the higher at risk you are of creating these situations. Then you have Chris Taylor in your face telling you you're a piece of shit because you're like mismanaging, your female relationships. And he's right. He just didn't know he was talking about apex of hypergamy, which I've repented from, by the way.
You know what else men will do is they'll judge you for having all these women who are crazy.
Yes.
It's like, we need to choose better women. It's like, it's not that you need to choose better women. It's the fact that you become the apex and then they act crazy because you are the apex.
Exactly. That is exactly.
And they're not understanding this concept.
No.
So they're projecting that judgment on you
constantly.
Instead of asking questions or figuring this out and then knowing why. But this episode explains why that's going on.
Exactly. It's why it's so critical. I mean, I know that we had talked about like putting this like behind the paywall in the course, but no, like this is such a big fucking problem. It had to be publicly available information. Apex of hypergamy is absolutely fucking risky, and no one else in the world, especially in the red pill or the manosphere, is talking about this concept.
Yeah, and all you ungrateful people in the comments talking about, talk about psychology. You should be thankful for us talking about this, which is different than what you're used to. But if you don't want to be here, then don't be on the Hacked Off channel.
Yeah, just get the fuck out.
That comment is so annoying, and it got like 9 people liked it. All of you, get on school. You have no right to have that opinion. You just don't.
No,
you're just wrong.
And
ungrateful
and potentially stupid and foolish. Potentially. It's just like, come on. We're trying to like, if men would manage apex of hypergamy properly, like that alone would make a huge dent in fatherlessness, like straight up.
Yeah, like we're giving you guys gold. Like this is so much to be grateful for. We don't want to hear this nonsense. And the psychology exists. It's there. Get on school. Why do you think you weren't on YouTube like the last 6 months? It's because you're doing all the stuff for the courses that are on school that are extremely valuable. Too valuable to give out for free.
I was working my ass off.
And $29 is not that expensive.
No, it's not. Like they need to fucking put their money where the mouth is, and they're not.
And it will cost you more financially over the course of your life not knowing this information.
Exactly.
So pay the $29.
Tiny credit cards.
No excuses. No comments complaining with your entitlement mentality. Like, just stop.
Yeah. All right, are you good?
I'm good.
All right, cool. Thanks for watching and listening. See you guys in the next episode.